What is good, everybody? Welcome back to another episode brought to you by the League FFB, and more specifically, an episode of Let's Talk Dynasty. Now, November is here. Hopefully, you guys had a good and safe Halloween last night. We're a little bit later than usual today, I think, on the release, and that is because I had no internet this morning. So we went through some technical difficulties. You guys know it's not usually me. It's my fault. You know, it's my fault today. I'm going to take, I guess it's really not my fault because I can't control whether or not I have internet, but it is what it is. Look, we're here for an episode of Let's Talk Dynasty, the Dynasty Trade Review Show. It would not be that without my co-host MFGD, so just wanted to apologize for the later upload. I know some of you guys are always waiting on it, but let's get into today's video and let's start talking about some Dynasty trades. War, how we doing today, man?
Better late than never is what I always say.
I was getting nervous, man. I was getting nervous. It looked like we might be pushing an episode, trying to sneak in a bonus episode one time, losing an episode. I don't know, man. It was getting nervous, but because I know you have some time restraints today. So look, we're gonna get through this today quickly, talk about these trades, get into it, and go really into a deep dive, I think, on a couple of these moves, because it feels like a lot of people, as we're approaching this Dynasty trade deadline right now, if you have a league that has a trade deadline, I am pro trade deadlines. I know some people aren't. That might be controversial. Let me know in the comments down below what you think. But as we approach that, people are starting to push the chips in. So I'm noticing that a lot of the trades today feel like teams that are winning, trying to get that extra oomph to win a fantasy championship. So yeah. It's going to be interesting to see how these go, but I say we just pull up that first trade here. And the first trade I have here on the screen is a 12-team, one quarterback, half PPR, no tight end premium. Now, it is a start 7 with 3 IDP slots. We aren't going to touch the IDP side of this thing. However, it's all offensive players in this deal. Lang says he is 7-1 right now, so a winning team trading for CeeDee Lamb. He traded away Saquon Barkley and a 2026 first-round pick to do so. So I'm going to ask you here, you know, Saquon hasn't performed the way we've wanted him so far this year. Is Saquon and a first still the type of asking price that it's going to take for CeeDee Lamb, or are you getting nervous about Saquon Barkley?
Look, dude, here's where I'm at on this trade. This is a winning side for Lang. Lang won this one. It's not so much that I'm not even worried about Saquon. But if we're talking about CeeDee Lamb for the price of Saquon Barkley, who is like one of the running backs, but he's still a running back that's a little bit up there in years. And then you're trading away a first that's not a 27 first, it's 26 first. Got to say that again. You're getting the services of CeeDee Lamb. This one's pretty easy to me. So, I mean, to answer your question, I'm not worried about Saquon like as far as this season, but I feel like you're buying a more future upside and you're getting a current stud in CeeDee Lamb.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. And I think Saquon Barkley right now, obviously, it's going to be hard to replicate what you did last year. Last year was to use the word in the correct form, a generational type of year for Saquon Barkley. Those types of years don't come in that often. And I think that's just kind of hard for people to come to terms with when you have that and you draft him with expectations that it's going to be more of the same, and then it kind of regresses back to the mean. And now you're looking at Saquon Barkley as a top running back, but not, you know, all decade team type of production from him here in 2025. Yeah. At the end of the day, I definitely think CeeDee Lamb is the player that I would prefer in a dynasty format right now. You're taking the elite top 5 wide receiver versus a running back at his age, who I think if we had a conversation right now, I don't think Saquon Barkley is a top 5 dynasty running back. I don't think he is. You'd have to put Bijan, you have to put Gibbs. I still think Jeanty belongs in that conversation. There's going to be guys in there like Hampton who probably belong in the conversation, Achan. Like, there's lots of names at the running back position that I would just take as younger players moving forward. The fact that you're 7-1, I'm going to assume too that you are kind of playing the future, but you're also trying to get some production. And it seems like with Saquon Barkley leaving, you probably also have some other running backs that you're looking to plug into your lineup already that are probably just as safe. And with start 7 on the offensive side of the ball here for this league, it's a start 10. He said 3 of them are IDPs. Start 7 means that you need superstars in the lineup, and I think Saquon is one of those, but CeeDee Lamb is certainly the top player in this asset, or I guess the top asset in this deal for me, so he's going to be the player that I take.
Yeah, pretty much. I know we usually you got to go, this is Dynasty, man, you got to go with the wide receiver over the older running back, even with that first attached.
All right, so yeah, I think we're just going to go with the Lamb side. Let's go on to the next trade here. The next trade for me is going to be this 12-team Superflex full PPR trade. Team number 1 says they are 7-1 as well, so a team that is definitely competing. They said they have Woody Marks as their running back 2 right now, so what they needed to do was trade George Pickens, Ja'Cory Cross-Merritt, get a 26 first round pick, and they got Jahmyr Gibbs now to plug into their lineup as a contender. How do you feel about this type of deal?
I feel like you did this one on purpose. Because the inverse of the other deal. Like this one, you're getting Jahmyr Gibbs. He's a younger stud running back, and that's completely different. And you're trading away George Pickens, who's having a great season, but he's there different levels. And you're getting Bill in the first. So I'm going to the Gibbs side. Like I wish somebody would make me this offer for Jahmyr Gibbs.
You want this offer for Jahmyr Gibbs? You would sell Jahmyr Gibbs for the Pickens, or you're saying you would do the opposite? You would sell this package for Gibbs?
I would sell this package for Gibbs, definitely.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think JCM has been fairly disappointing from a production standpoint, obviously based off of the opportunity cost in which you added him to your Dynasty rosters. Hopefully, if you were paying attention, in April when we were telling you, I guess more so I was telling you about JCM and telling you to get him onto your roster, it was free. It was free 99. You were adding him on based off fab or maybe a 5th round, 4th round rookie pick in your rookie drafts. And that cost that you used to get him, he's been a winner, I think, for you. But so far, the production hasn't hit for JCM. That doesn't mean that it can't, but he is definitely replaceable. A 26 first round pick with a team that's 7-1. I'm moving it because it is late. And George Pickens, I think probably a little bit overvalued in Dynasty right now. And the reason why I say that is because he is definitely produced here in Dallas. And I think that a contract extension is going to come for George Pickens as well. But at the end of the day, a lot of the early season production came with CeeDee Lamb off of the football field. So I do think we probably need to look at it that way. I think George Pickens is still going to be a producer with CeeDee Lamb here, but the top 5 numbers that we saw, the top 10 numbers that we saw from George Pickens while Lamb was out of the lineup, I think it regresses just a tiny bit more now in the next couple of weeks as Lamb is a little bit healthier and Ferguson is involved and things like that. That said, everybody's going to be valuable. The whole thing here that I just really want to get at and really not waste too much more time about it is Woody Marks was his running back too, and he's 7-1. And now I'm trading guys that I would assume are probably your wide receiver 2, your wide receiver 3 on your team, a flex piece that you got for pretty cheap on your team, and you get to have a bona fide top 2 Dynasty running back on your roster for the rest of season as a 7-1 team. That to me, you're pushing the chips in, you're going to win a championship. This is the type of move that does it. I love this type of deal for Jahmyr Gibbs.
Yeah, me too. Slam here.
Easy. All right, let's go on to this next trade. The next trade that I have is a 12-team super flex full PPR type of league. It is team number 1 who is 6-1. I guess they might have submitted this a week early. Maybe they just gave me the wrong context. 6-1 is 7 weeks. We've played more than that, but they said that they're worried about Bucky Irving. So what they do is they trade away Bucky Irving and Rachaad White, that Tampa Bay backfield, and they get the 49ers backfield with Christian McCaffrey and Brian Robinson. Now, a 3rd round pick was thrown in for 2026. I don't think there's too much here that feels crazy, but I found the context of being worried about Bucky Irving kind of odd. I think Bucky Irving is a player. Obviously, he's missed some time here this year, but at the end of the day, are you worried about Bucky Irving, or do you think Bucky Irving is a fine rest of season asset for you still?
I think he's a fine rest of season asset. I think when he says he's worried about Bucky, I mean, is he thinking more so in a context of like,
going to be
when
out
is he
the
going
rest
to
of the season?
Yeah, when is he going to get back to help me? And I mean, even when you think of it in that case, Rachaad White has been fine, and in replacement of Irving. So I'm not sure. I mean, it's hard to poo-poo getting Christian McCaffrey, and you're 6-1. But then I'm also just like, why are you worried about Bucky if you're 6-1? A year from now, if Christian McCaffrey takes a step back, or if Christian McCaffrey's just done, you're gonna be like, damn, I wish I would have kept a younger running back that's still producing. So I mean, I would have just rolled with the punches in this one and kept rolling with Rachaad White and kept waiting for Bucky to get back, especially if I'm a winning team already.
Yeah, I think that's the argument here with this trade is you have the longevity aspect or you have the win now aspect. And I think both players, if healthy, CMC and Bucky Irving are both win now players for you. However, the longevity side of this deal definitely favors the Bucky Irving side. So when I'm looking at this as a team that is 6-1, I've obviously won games in plenty of games without Bucky Irving in my lineup, I'm not too worried. And I guess I just don't understand where the worry is with Bucky Irving rest of season, because everything that I've heard and everything that I've been paying attention to points to the aspect that Bucky Irving is likely going to be returning after the bye week here for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So you're going into week 10, 11, 12, rest of season with Bucky Irving in the lineup. And yes, even if Bucky Irving and CMC are both in the lineup, I do prefer CMC because his value that he's going to have as a producer is still higher. But the longevity of Bucky Irving, I think, is kind of where I want to be. I'm willing to shave, a few of those points off of Christian McCaffrey to get an extra 2 years out of my running back there with Bucky Irving. And yes, you're going to get the win now asset in CMC. And yes, he can help push you over the top and win a championship this year. But I don't know, part of me, and maybe it's the injury from last year, and maybe it's some of the other stuff with CMC. It just feels like you're playing and gambling with CMC right now, because it's like, if you don't have a healthy CMC, the value floor drops. It evaporates immediately, and CMC goes back to conversations that you and I were having in the offseason when people were like, should I trade a mid-second for CMC? Should I give a single second-round pick for CMC? And people were like, I don't know, CMC's kind of cooked. You probably shouldn't give a second-round pick. Like, that is the value of what happens to CMC if another injury happens. So, I'm going to take the CMC side. I just go through all of that saying, like, I'm going to take the CMC side, I think, from a winning perspective. But I think if you have any concerns about longevity of your football team or your dynasty team, you should lean the Bucky Irving side. But this is a pretty fair deal, and I think it's an interesting dichotomy here of whether you want to win now right now or you want to win now with longevity.
Yeah, I agree. And just a little tidbit, too, on the Brian Robinson side. It's like, even though he's there now, I don't really necessarily look at him as like the heir apparent to Christian McCaffrey. So
he's a free agent at the end of this offseason.
Yeah. So yeah, that's all I want to add in there.
Yeah, because I think that's an interesting piece too, because you're like, well, if anything happens to CMC, I have B-Rob. Well, if anything happens to CMC next year, when you have him on your team, you might not have B-Rob. B-Rob might not be there. So that definitely is an interesting thing, because now you're playing with the Garendo or the Jordan James, or maybe Kyle Shanahan, like he does every single year, goes in and dips into a running back draft class where he's like, I like that running back and I'm going to put him on the team too. Happens every year. But look, I do think you're pushing the chips and you're trying to win with Christian McCaffrey. And now that being said, if you do want to win on your own, the best way to win is over on Underdog, because if you sign up over there using promo code LeagueFFB and you play $5, they will give you $100 in bonus funds instantly that you can play with and keep winning with on Underdog. You just missed Boosttober. I gave you a whole month of Boosttober where they had promos in the app every single day. Don't worry, Boosttober is over, but you can still get your $100. You just have to sign up using code LeagueFFB. So like I said, if you want to support the show, it does mean a lot to us. New customers who use promo code LeagueFFB, that is what you got to do. If you don't want to do that, hit the like button for us. Other than that, though, let's get back into the show. All right, so we have a 12-team Superflex 6-point passing touchdown half PPR league with a start 10 type of format. Team number 1 says they needed quarterback 2. So they traded away Ashton, Jeanty, Michael Pittman, and Tua Tagovailoa. What they got was Caleb Williams, J.K. Dobbins, and a 2028 first-round pick. So I'm going to ask you, War, Superflex 6-point passing touchdown type of league. Jeanty is obviously one of the top dynasty running backs. Are you moving him all day long to add Caleb Williams?
Yes, because the way I look at the assets in this deal is, to me, J.K. Dobbins is a temporary asset. Tua, for sure, is a temporary asset. Tua is a sure temporary.
Any week now, it feels like the benching is happening.
Pittman, he's starting to reclaim some of the value he lost, but we still got to see it. We need to see if this is going to be an entire season long thing. I think me and you have talked about it before that, Pittman might be due for some regression. So we'll see. So really, if I'm
definitely
looking
in the touchdown department for sure, but I think the receiving and all the other stuff, it looks still fine.
Yeah. So if I'm looking at this from a sense of Jeanty as the primary piece and Caleb in a first as the primary piece going to the other side, I just like the idea of getting a quarterback in a 6-point Superflex league, especially getting the first thrown in, even though it's way in 2028.
Yeah, I mean, I think the first is kind of the cherry on top here that almost didn't need to be thrown in, because I would have the argument here potentially, and I know that the consensus thought bubble around Caleb Williams is going to vary so significantly depending on who you talk to. There's going to be people that still believe in Caleb Williams, still think Caleb Williams can have this fantasy football upside, this ceiling. And then there's going to be people that are instantly, he's a bust, he's zero. You might as well get out now before he hits rock bottom. Like there's going to be that dichotomy with him as well. So I think right now for me, Jeanty and Caleb Williams, if I'm on the clock in a 12-team super flex 6-point passing touchdown league and I'm looking at these two players, I'm drafting Caleb Williams in my startup because of the value of the position. I'm willing to fill in the running back later. And so I'm going to take Caleb over Jeanty. And then if I'm looking at it the rest of the way, it's a 28 first and J.K. Dobbins for Pittman and Tua. That's fine with me. So I'm fine to take the first and Dobbins for that. I definitely think Pittman has been one of the bigger value risers of the offseason. He was left for dead in trade markets in the summer, and he has been one of the better producing wide receivers in football. So I think he's definitely one of the bigger value risers, but just given the context of this trade, the context is king. 6-point passing touchdowns, you needed a quarterback too. I'll trade Jeanty all day long to go get Caleb Williams in this type of format.
Yeah, I agree for the same exact reasons.
Pretty cut and dry, man. I kind of like it when it's that way, but we got a 12-team super flex half PPR league right here. Team number 1 is 3-5. So this is the first team in today's episode that isn't a 6-1, 7-1 contending win now type of team. They're 3-5 and they're retooling. So what they did was traded away Nico Collins, Matthew Golden, and David Montgomery. Now what they get is Marvin Harrison Jr., a 26 first round pick, and Kenneth Walker. So you're kind of trying to get younger, get some draft capital. But I'm kind of curious to see how you feel because we've kind of had this conversation about Marvin and Nico and these other wide receivers so far. But when you see a deal like this, what's going through your mind?
Nico is for sure the best player in this deal. For sure, 100%. So when I look at the context of what's being done, because I mean, he said he's 3-5 and retooling now. So I mean, retooling and rebuilding are two separate things, but let's just look at it for the sake of it as rebuilding. In this deal, I don't necessarily know why he's given up the best player in the deal and also having to throw in a young asset going back the other direction.
Talking about Golden?
Even though we know how you feel about Golden. But when we put Golden up against Kenneth Walker, I'm just like, dude, you keep Kenneth Walker, I keep Golden. I'm retooling, rebuilding, whatever. Here, go ahead and you take Marvin as first for Nico and Montgomery because I'm giving up the best player in the damn deal.
Makes sense. I think for me, I'm more looking at that as like I'm re-rolling Matthew Golden. I probably used a late first, early second on him last year. I'm willing to re-roll him because I don't like what I've seen out of Golden so far. And everybody's going to tell you, like, when he gets the football, he looks good. I agree. The problem is that he plays for the Green Bay Packers, who give everybody the football. Christian Watson is now back in the lineup. Jaden Reed on his way back into the lineup. Matthew Golden is not going to be a double-digit target type of monster. He's never been that, ever. At Texas, wasn't that. Before that, wasn't that. In Green Bay, he's not going to be a target monster. He's a very fun player to watch on film, but the analytics were poor, and he's never been a target earner. So that's my Golden thing. I'm more than happy to re-roll for a 26 first round pick. I myself, where I drafted Matthew Golden, I only got him in one spot, and it's because I got him at like the 205. It was so late that I was like, I have to take the first round wide receiver. I've been trying to re-roll him, and nobody wants him. So when I'm looking at it, it's like Nico Collins down tiering to Marvin. Does the first bridge the gap? Maybe. So then I'm like, Kenneth Walker for Monty and Golden. I hear where you're coming from. It feels like you're losing value a tiny bit because the value should kind of lean towards the Collins and the Golden side. But from a process standpoint, if you believe Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to take a couple steps forward in the back half of the year. Now, we've had this conversation a billion times, it feels like, with Marvin. If you believe he takes a step forward as a rookie, if you believe he takes a step forward in the summer, if you believe he takes a step forward at the start of the season, if you believe this has happened with Marvin multiple times. So it's kind of a boy who cried wolf right now with Marvin for me. I think you have to believe it, or you also have to believe that Kenneth Walker is this great asset, which I don't believe he is. So I'm going to go to this trade specifically and say Nico, Golden, and Monty wins the deal from a value perspective. You should have got more, but if this is what the league market provided, it's fine given the process of you retooling. You are getting younger, but by how much? Nico's not that much older than Marvin. Monty, he's older than Walker, and then Golden's just a rookie. So I get it, but yeah, that's kind of just where I'm at. This is an interesting deal because I just feel like I understand where your process is, and I can see you trying to do the process in the deal, but I just don't think the value fully adds up.
Yeah, I agree. The Marvin Harrison, man, the polarizing wide receiver prospect that we once deemed as generational. We won't know. We won't know, man. I don't. The Cardinals, man, I'm not going to go on a tangent, man. It's just, when I think about that team, it's just several points of frustration because in reality, it shouldn't even be a damn question like Nico Collins for Marvin Harrison Jr. Because when you look at it, Marvin Harrison was drafted to be that guy. And if you would have told us a year ago that you're getting Marvin Harrison in the first, you're giving up Nico Collins and David Montgomery, it should have been a lock. But here we are.
Yeah, it's interesting. I actually, the more that we talk about it, I think you're kind of right in your first initial analysis of like, I think if you take Matthew Golden out of this deal, even though I don't love Matthew Golden as a player, if you take him out, it feels like it's a little bit even. Like, I think that is the Golden shouldn't have been thrown in, and then you have a really good even deal.
Yeah, I agree. Because even if we're talking about a re-roll of Golden, you could still have Golden on your roster and re-roll Golden.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. And I think, as I say it, I think Marvin in the 26th first round pick, obviously we don't have context, I guess, to the first round pick. I'm assuming it's more of a late pick, but I guess we don't really know. They didn't tell us. So if it's an early 26th first, I think that makes you feel better about this deal for sure. But I do think if it's a late one, which is kind of how I was viewing it, Marvin in a late first it does feel like that's kind of the value to equal Nico for me right now.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's go on to the next trade here. The next trade that we have is a 12-team Superflex, half PPR, and start 8 type of league. They said they have a loaded roster, but they need quarterback, or at least consistent quarterback play, because they said the guys that they have were not cutting it. Now, the guys they had were Caleb Williams and Kyler Murray. They also threw in Dylan Sampson and Alvin Kamara in this deal. What they got back was 2 quarterbacks in Baker Mayfield and Brock Purdy. So I think this is interesting because, one, it's a start 8 league. So they said they have a loaded roster. In start 8, most people are going to have pretty loaded rosters because those starting lineups are pretty shallow. But they said that they weren't getting the consistency. They weren't getting the production that they wanted out of their quarterbacks in Caleb and Kyler. And they traded for Baker and Brock. Baker's been balling, but Brock Purdy has not played a lot of football this year. So it's kind of interesting to me that you want safety at the quarterback, consistency at the quarterback position, but you're trading for a guy who hasn't played a lot. How do you feel about this trade?
Dude, let's be clear here. There's only one consistent player in this deal. That's Baker Mayfield. Everybody else is inconsistent. From Kamara to Kyler to Caleb, Dylan Sampson's a backup. Brock Purdy has been injured. I mean, I just don't understand why trade Kyler and Caleb. Like, your number one target in this deal should have been Baker Mayfield. What is needed to acquire Baker Mayfield? Because he's the only consistent one there. How can we even debate that Purdy is consistent? He hasn't played. That's the definition of inconsistency.
Yeah, and that's not to say that he can't get onto the football field. It does sound like he's trending to be on the football field, and it should be fine for him in the back half. But I agree with you. I kind of pulled this in there thinking, like, interesting that you feel like you needed the quarterback production, but I don't feel like Caleb Williams has been a bad producer for fantasy. I feel like Caleb Williams, the on the field, in real life football, film has been inconsistent. The fantasy production feels fine.
The person who's getting Caleb is buying low, and that guy's selling low because Caleb's coming off of 2 bad weeks, so we're letting that dictate the prior weeks before that where he was one of the top fantasy producing quarterbacks. So, I mean, I guess I don't get that part of the deal. I much rather would have preferred, if it was possible, to have Baker Mayfield and Caleb Williams over Baker Mayfield and Brock Purdy.
Yeah, and that just may not have been possible. But I'm looking at Caleb, and QB 9 week 1, QB 20, QB 1, QB 24, QB 10. Like, it has been inconsistent. But the ceiling has been a top 10 quarterback. And yes, one of those came against Dallas, who I think everybody's been balling against Dallas. So, like, it is what it is. But you look at the rest of the season for Caleb Williams, he gets gets Cincinnati, he gets the Giants, he gets Pittsburgh, who's been bad against quarterbacks. I don't know, man. I feel like this is a player where, and people are probably going to call me crazy. I don't think they should. If they do, whatever. But if I'm looking at these assets, all of these assets in a startup draft, and they say, hey, this is your player pool, or maybe you're in a dispersal and you're like, this is the player pool you have to pick from. In a dynasty league, Caleb's the first guy that I pull off this board here. He's the guy that I pull off first. I think he has the most dynasty value. I think he has the most chance at hitting high value in a trade market. And I think he's a fine producer for me. Maybe not as good of a producer right now as Baker Mayfield. He's definitely the best contending piece here. But I think Caleb Williams holds more dynasty value in trade markets than Baker Mayfield. So he would be the player that I want. I do like Purdy more than I like Kyler Murray, but then you're throwing these extra pieces on top, given they're not valuable pieces by any means, but you are throwing pieces on top. So it tells me that you viewed Caleb and Baker as either equal, or you viewed Baker as a more valuable dynasty asset. And I think that's kind of this point in the season where you can find long-term gains with short-term mindset managers, where I can get a guy in Caleb Williams for a guy who is, producing right now, but he's in his 30s. Here's the thing. We've talked about this before. Quarterbacks, once they hit 30, 31, 32, and people start looking at them and you see the 3 in front of the age instead of the 2, the value doesn't increase. The value only decreases every year. The production can still remain valuable, but the opportunities that present themselves for you to potentially trade out of that asset, God forbid you ever want to, they get slimmer and slimmer and slimmer every single year, because the age becomes more of a negotiation pinpoint where people can say, I don't want Baker Mayfield anymore. He's 32. Yeah, he's performing, but he's 32. Yeah, he's blah, 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 but he's blah, blah, blah. You know what I'm saying? Like, that becomes a point that people can use. Whereas Caleb Williams, they can say, well, he hasn't really lived up to the expectations, but he's 23 years old or he's 24 years old, and I can just get him on my rebuilding roster and love what I have in a young quarterback. Like, have this sense of security where I feel like I have a young guy. And it's just like, I don't know. I think you limit yourself. All of that being said, folks, I do think Baker Mayfield is the best producer here. And so if you want points, go for it. I think from a value standpoint, you lose the deal. And Caleb Williams is the player that I think I want the most. I'm not selling low on Caleb right now. I've tried to pivot in a few spots off of Caleb. I will admit that, but I'm not selling low on Caleb. I'm pivoting, trying to find pivots at market value. I don't feel like this is a pivot at market value.
Yeah, I agree. And the one thing you do have to factor into with like some of these quarterbacks is, don't just look at what they're doing now, what they're producing now. Also look at the real life opportunities they'll get. Caleb is still going to get the rest of this season to turn it around in Chicago. He'll get next season to turn it around in Chicago. And then if things don't look the way it needs to look next year, you'll probably get him traded. Then the next team he goes to is going to give him a season or two of opportunities just based off his draft status. So you got to look at things like that too. By the time all of that transpires, there's a chance that Baker is either on his way out the league or like he's in like that Joe Flacco position. So
And we love Baker Mayfield on this channel, folks. We do. But at the end of the day, I think dynasty value here is for Caleb Williams. I get what you're doing here, and it makes sense. If you can win the championship, everything we said, you can say, fuck you, it doesn't matter. I won the championship. So at the end of the day, that's what you're playing for. But I think you might have lost this deal just a tiny bit. So let's go on to the next trade here. The next trade that I have is a 12-team Superflex half PPR start 9. Now, Addicted to Game says he's consolidating as a contender. So he has a lot of depth. He wants to consolidate this into elite assets. So he takes Nico, he takes Garrett Wilson, Justin Fields, and Ja'Cory Crosby-Merritt, and he consolidates those 4 assets into CeeDee Lamb and Troy Franklin. It's a lot of assets consolidated into CeeDee Lamb. I got to ask you, War, obviously consolidating is great, but is this too much value lost?
I mean, Nico Collins and Garrett Wilson for CeeDee Lamb, that feels like a deal that could be made, like if you're willing to make it. But I won't necessarily say it feels like appropriate value. Now, don't get me wrong. CeeDee Lamb's a dog. Don't get me wrong. Nico Collins, we know he's also a dog, but he's a little longer in the tooth. And then you got Garrett Wilson, who we think is a dog. He's just a jet.
He's not that much. He's like 26, bro.
I thought
Nico's
Garrett
like
Wilson.
26.
And Garrett Wilson is how old?
Like 25, 20 something as well. Let me fact check you.
Yeah, so yes, and CD's around like the same age, like basically in between those two, right?
Nico's 26 years old. CeeDee Lamb is 26 years old. Garrett Wilson is 25 years old. It's 26, 26, and 25.
So pretty much all these guys are around the same age. So I mean,
The you're getting younger argument doesn't work here because they're all the same age.
It doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't. And even like I was looking at it too, like, okay, you're getting Garrett Wilson, and like I said, you're getting younger and you're getting production from Nico Collins, but you're kind of like not getting younger. And then we got Bill, who, man, a lot of people are down on Bill. I'm not down on Bill. Like, I don't understand that people don't understand
it's the too much
preseason
hype. Too much preseason hype, and hasn't given you production, and people now are like turning on Bill Crosby Merritt. Jaden Daniels has been injured. Jacory's a 7th round running back. It was going to take time. Terry McLaurin hasn't been in the lineup. Like, the fact that Jahmyr Crosby Merritt is a starting running back in the NFL right now for the Commanders, and they felt good enough to trade away Brian Robinson, should tell you enough about how they believe in the kid. It just hasn't translated to production yet.
Which was going to be hard anyway with Marcus Mariota instead of Jaden Daniels, because then you lose the aspect of your offense. Just a little quick deep dive. You lose the aspect of your offense that is Jaden going to run it, or is he going to hand it off to Bill to run it? And so, like, that takes away from his opportunity to be able to make some plays. But I don't know, Andrew, man. I love the idea of getting CeeDee Lamb, and I like Troy Franklin, even though he's inconsistent. I like him.
I was going to ask you, who do you think's more valuable? Would you rather have Franklin or would you rather have Bill?
That's a hell of a question. Oh my goodness. I mean,
they're kind of the same, right? Like, I think value-wise, they're probably close to the same.
They're kind of the same, but I would give Bill the nod just in terms of like what I think could be what he could do this year. But long term, I'm never going to be comfortable with a 7th round running back starting on the team. I'm always going to think he's in a position to be replaced.
Yeah, and being able to plug in a running back into your RB2 slot feels better than a flex wide receiver. Because even Franklin, he's just like a flex guy most of the time.
Yeah. I think Justin Fields is like next to a non-factor. He's not getting another starting opportunity after he leaves the Jets, or once he's like officially benched. I think the ship has sailed. I think last week was a nice little boon, just because there's an injury and he got to get back in there and he produced. But that said,
I think this is like, folks, if you've been panicked on Justin Fields, if you got scared when they said that he might be getting benched, and you have this window now where it kind of reopened and cracked itself just a tiny bit, you sell Justin Fields now. This may be the last final sell window for Justin Fields.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, 100%.
So, I mean, look, for me, looking at this trade, man, I like consolidating. It's start 9, so it's smaller offenses. Like, I get you wanting to go get CeeDee Lamb. It feels like you're selling low on Nico. It feels like you're selling low on Garrett Wilson because of the injury. It's a lot of value. And we've talked about this before, where we say, I don't play to win trades. I play to win championships. But sometimes winning these trades helps you win those championships. So I'm looking at this and I'm like, if somebody came to me in a league where I had Lamb and said, I'll give you Nico and Garrett Wilson for Lamb, I think I'm doing it. It's almost too good of value to pass up. And we said JCM over Franklin anyways, just a little bit. And then you're throwing me a free Justin Fields, who at minimum, I can go to a quarterback needy team and say, hey, give me a 2nd round pick. I don't even care if just give me a second, like anything. And I can get that thrown into the deal too, because I can just re-roll out of Justin Fields and get a 2nd. It's too good of value for me to pass up. I get the process, but this one is just, it's too much of an overpay for me to like it. However, I think he said in the context, he knows he overpays, but if he goes and wins the championship, does it really even matter? And I think the answer to that question is no.
Hit the nail on the head, man.
If anybody is listening to this and plays in a league with me where I have CeeDee Lamb and you want to offer me a wide receiver 1 and Nico and a wide receiver 1 or a high-end wide receiver 2 and Garrett Wilson or something similar, hit my line. Let's go on to this trade here. I got a 10-team super flex PPR, half-point tight end premium, and start 10. Now, they are a contending team, and they said the 1st round pick in this deal is late. So you're trading away TreVeyon Henderson, Sam Laporta, a 28 second, a 26 third, and what you get is Omarion Omarion Hampton, a late 26 first, and Hunter Henry. So, the rookie running backs in this deal, Henderson and Hampton, so far it's kind of been a tale of two different stories for both of these guys, despite a lot of people viewing them somewhat similarly coming into the NFL draft. Looking at this, how do you kind of dissect this and kind of look at these assets?
I'm taking a Hampton in the first side. Hunter Henry. Sam Laporta, excellent tight end. But the thing is that this is a different era for tight ends. There's a good one that could produce for you coming out in every draft every year now. When it used to be a tight end every few years. Sometimes you get multiple good tight ends in one year. So like getting that premium tight end isn't like what it used to be. You know what I mean? And Henry is producing right now. He has a good rapport with Drake May. So that's good too. But Hampton, I just right now with the way Mike Vrabel treats TreVeyon Henderson, I mean, that could all change here in the next 24 hours or more, 26 hours. But right now I believe in Hampton more. I think that he'll get more touches. I think there's more juice for the squeeze with Hampton. And then obviously, if we're talking about a first versus a third and a second, it's a no-brainer. So, I mean, I think I'm going to lean that side, even though Sam Laporta is a more, younger, more productive tight end.
Yeah, I mean, I think really when you look at it like this, it's a 10-team league with only a half point on the tight end premium. So, you go from 12 starting tight ends in your league to 10 starting tight ends in your league. It already makes it a little bit easier for people to find tight end. And that's a half point, so it's not a ton. It doesn't juice them a ton either. There's an argument that Sam Laporta isn't super valuable. And in all honesty, he's kind of a guy in this type of format where the range for Laporta is like he's not in the elite tier, but he's like the next tier down. And then when you get to that tier, it's like it's almost worth more to just tier that guy down into the following tier and get into like the good, not great tight ends, but I can get a first round pick thrown in on top by tearing down away from Laporta, or tearing down away from, dare I say, a guy like Tucker Kraft right now who's been balling. Like, I think he's kind of entering that territory where he's worth maybe potentially looking at some tier downs. So for me, it's kind of a weird range of tight end to be in. It's like you're paying designer prices, but I'm not necessarily getting designer bags right now from them in the production department. I think when that's said, I like it. You're using the value to kind of get into the safety of what you believe Omarion Hampton is. However, as I say this, I am still a TreVeyon Henderson believer. I have not really wavered on TreVeyon Henderson as a talent. The opportunity hasn't presented itself yet. Sometimes you see that happen at the bye week. The Patriots have a week 14 bye. The bye's been long overdue. Like, this is something that could happen where Henderson is just a late bloomer. We saw it happen with Jahmyr Gibbs a little bit his rookie season. I think the schedule for Henderson is incredibly good the rest of the way. I mean, I showed you guys that schedule in one of our leagues, War. It is just dark green elite matchups for him as a running back the rest of the way. And so I think he is a player who could definitely be a league winner type of guy if Ramondre Stevenson is held off of the football field and Vrabel does decide, okay, we used a second round pick on this running back. Let's just give him the fucking rock. Because he's looked good when you do give him a rock, but it's been inconsistent. So I don't think the gap from Henderson to Hampton should be that massive. However, the trade market today dictates that it is. So I get it. You're paying that gap. My argument here is that that gap might shrink by the time end of season comes around here this year. And then you look at this and say, ooh, I might have sold TreVeyon Henderson low. I think that's probably a likely scenario here. But if I have to pick a side today, I think I like the idea of having Hampton in the first, but I think this is a good trade for both parties involved. And I think that team that is trading away Hampton to get Henderson and Laporta is making a little bit of a savvy move themselves.
Yeah, I can't disagree with you too much. It's a preference thing, who you believe in more. I also believe in TreVeyon Henderson. Just got to get that damn ball, man. You got to get that rock.
Let's see it happen this weekend, Vrabel. Let's do it, man. I want to see that happen. So look, 12-team, super flex, PPR, tight end premium, and start 10. This is a contending team, and they said all of the picks in this deal are late. So we're trading away a late 27 first. That might spark your interest here, War. A 27 first, a 27 second, a 26 and a 27 third, and you get Bucky, Irving, and Rachaad White. So the Tampa Bay backfield, we just talked about it not too long ago. But as a contender, are you trading a late first and a late second with a couple late thirds to go get Bucky, Irving, and try and win this year?
Late makes it all the difference. And I mean, to quote you from the last trade we did, if you win the championship if you actually win a championship by acquiring Bucky, Irving, and Rachaad White, then this is all worth it. But if you are not able to win a championship this year, and you're not able to win a championship in 26, then this trade means nothing. You just gave away a lot of draft capital for 2 running backs that are going to be 2 years older by the time those draft picks actually, outside of one, actually come to pass. So I will lean with saying that it's a fair deal, but there is some risk involved.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a very solid, fair deal as well. I think if you're a contending team, I'm okay paying the first and the second, assuming they are late, to go get Bucky and Rachaad White. I would honestly, I think you could probably get a cheaper deal here. I get a lot of people want to handcuff and get the security of Rachaad White too, but it's funny to me, at least I've experienced in trade markets where when people are packaging the handcuff with me, the value's more expensive. It's almost like you're paying a premium because they have the insurance policy already on the running back for you. Yeah. However, when you don't take the insurance policy, risky. I don't recommend not, being insured. But if you don't take the insurance policy, you often get a little bit of a cheaper price. So I would probably have tried to just go get Bucky and said, you keep Rachaad. And you could circle back on Rachaad at the trade deadline. And I bet you Rachaad is cheaper than he is right now. But I think at the end of the day, I'm okay with this deal. I think it's a fine deal if you're trying to win. 27, love the draft class. Think it's probably, at that point in time, if you think you're getting that talented of a player in the late first to hit the way that Bucky Irving has hit, it's still a pretty big gamble despite how good that class is. So just give me Bucky here. I like it as a contender. Go for it.
I'm Buck and I don't give a
what? Nuck if you buck? Let's go to this trade here. 14 team, super flex, full PPR, and tight end premium. Team number 1 says they needed help at running back, and I think this is our last trade here. So they traded away Ladd McConkey, a 27 second, 27 third, a 28 third, and Sam Darnold. That's the team that traded away those pieces and needed the running back. They got Kyren Williams, George Pickens, and Bryce Young. So you kind of consolidate here. 14-team league. I mean, we're talking about, we need some players in the lineup. What do you think here, dude?
I mean, you're getting a grip right here, and it's just 14 teams. Like I said, you're getting more players here. So I mean, that's a big deal. It's a big deal because the more players you have, the more volume you're gonna have. Even though that didn't make any damn sense.
Let me ask you. I was gonna let you get around to it, but let me ask you. Today, you have to pick one of these receivers: George Pickens or Ladd McConkey. Which one do you take?
Ladd McConkey.
I agree. I still think Ladd McConkey is a more valuable receiver than George Pickens.
Yeah, Ladd McConkey.
Are they close?
Not with CeeDee Lamb there.
I think they're closer, but I still prefer Ladd.
I think there's a lot of filling out and getting rid of fluff for the Chargers. I think they're still figuring things out, but the one thing I'm really confident in going forward is that Ladd is the number 1 receiver for that team. QJ has been turning back into QJ. Keenan Allen eventually is going to retire or get hurt, whichever one comes first. That's how Keenan Allen rolls. Arondé Gaston actually is probably going to be the the number 2 target on that team. So, but Ladd, I still had the utmost confidence in him. I know that it was looking weird at the beginning of the season because everybody was getting more opportunities than him. But I think they're starting to correct that. Maybe they have had a conversation or something.
I also think that type of stuff just wrinkles itself out over time, right? It's just you have that as part of a early season small sample size, and you're like, well, game 1 and game 2, QJ scored 3 touchdowns or whatever it was. He's the number 1 guy. Well, as you get 16 more games into the schedule and you realize that QJ finishes with 6 or 7 touchdowns and 4 or 5 of them came in those first month of football. Yeah, that was maybe just a small spurt there of QJ, whereas the whole picture was more Ladd McConkey.
Yeah, hopefully we get the same thing for a guy like BTJ. But yeah, George Pickens, very talented player. I do think he'll be productive with CeeDee Lamb there. We're not gonna get that George Pickens, that CeeDee Lamb injured George Pickens. No. I do like that this team went out and got Kyren Williams because they need help at running back and they're already number 1. But it's going to suck. Put that out there. It's going to suck if we start getting 2024 Ladd McConkey. If you trade away 2024 Ladd McConkey, the one that was looking like Cooper Kupp, and I'm not talking about just because we know he's Ladarius.
If you trade away Ladarius, yeah.
Yeah, if he's putting up Cooper Kupp's numbers, I'm going to be sick, especially especially if you trade away Sam Darnold, who has kind of shed that I'm not going to be crap without KOC label. He's kind of shed that. And you're getting back Bryce Young, who's regressed from what we thought he could have been last season. And George Pickens takes a complete back seat to CeeDee Lamb. It's going to be real tough seeing Lad McConkey and Sam Darnold do their things. I think Kyron will still be there. Kyron still helps you because, you know, you need a running back. But sometimes, man, you got to go player over need, goddammit.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think the deal gets done without the McConkey Pickens swap. I was going to try and see if maybe it could be done without it. I don't think it's possible. But at the end of the day, I do think Lad McConkey is the best player in the deal. I think you did, you know, in 14-team league, you need the running back. You go get Kyron. That makes a lot of sense because I think Kyron's a low-end RB1. I think Darnold's the better quarterback, so I'm echoing a lot of what you say. I think really it's going to come down to preference and how Pickens performs. Let me ask you this question. This is going to be more a little bit trying to predict the future, which not necessarily don't put too much stock into it, but more so just what do you think is going to happen? Does Pickens get the contract from Dallas, or do they let him hit the open market and he becomes somebody else's number one?
It's tricky because Dallas, they're weird when it comes to contracts. I'm going to go with them.
Probably tagged, actually. Just gets franchise tagged.
Yeah, I think that's the number one thing to happen. I feel like Dallas takes care of their offensive guys more likely than their defensive guys.
Yeah, I think Jerry's been a little bit more vocal about positively wanting George Pickens to come back. So for whatever reason, it was a little bit more negative with Micah, which I just don't understand, but who knows? There's always personal relationships involved as well, which may add into this.
I was actually going to add that point too. And Jerry seems like the type of guy who wants to save face at times. So I could totally see him giving Pickens the contract just because he didn't give Micah the contract and say, see, I can get contracts done with players.
Y'all said I don't pay my players, but here, we just gave Pickens money.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could see it. But hey, look, I think this trade...
Micah is the first one that actually... Micah's the first player that he's actually, lost, as a result of them not being able to come to terms on a contract. So...
Yeah, I mean, in recent years, paid Zeke, paid Dak, paid CeeDee. He's paid offensive linemen across the board. Paid Ferguson when he was his contract was up. I guess they lost Dalton Schultz. Schultz hit free agency, and Schultz got paid by Houston, but wasn't a superstar for them. He's paid a lot of their offensive guys. But look, I think with this trade, I like what you're doing. You have to believe Pickens and Ladd are similar, and if you do, you do. I prefer Ladd, but if you believe Pickens and Ladd are similar, I will take the Kyron side. Me personally, I think I'm going to lean the Kyron side just a little bit, but Ladd's the best player in the deal for me.
Yeah.
Definitely. All right. And that was it. That is the last trade. So as we do every single week, every Saturday, like I said, this one's coming out a little bit later for you guys. I had some issues with the internet, is what it is. Appreciate you guys for hanging out. But every single week we do this on Saturdays. If you have never submitted a Dynasty trade into our Discord, you can do that for free. It is linked in the description. Just go in there, submit your trade, add some context, do all that good stuff. And we will try and get to it next week as well. But like I said, every single week one of these comes out. So make sure you guys are subscribed. That way you don't miss them if you enjoy the content. And if you do like the content, do me a favor and hit that like button as well. It always helps this channel, kind of pushes it, shows YouTube that you guys are enjoying the content, and that always helps us grow. So please do those things for me. Join the Discord, subscribe, and like the video. War, do you have anything for the people before we get out?
Yeah, check us out, the Crimson Mass Show YouTube channel, and check us out, Crimson Mass Pro Wrestling YouTube channel. We provide wrestling content. Thank you very much.
Hell yeah. Go show them some love, guys. We'll see you guys on the next one, though. Until then, peace out.